And welcome to this morning's Family and Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, Thursday the 5th of May. And for the first time in a long time, we're actually having this meeting in the Council Chamber. So welcome to everyone and welcome to our new venue. So if I can start by taking your agenda items this morning and start off with apologies for absence, please, Leslie.
I've received apologies from Councillors Dunn, Swinburne and Thorne. Thank
you very much. I will now take item 2 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the meeting from the 7th of April 2022, pages 1 to 6. Remember, any comment on the minutes is about their accuracy. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes, pages 1 to 6? I'm not seeing anyone indicating, so I will sign those as an accurate record of that meeting. We then come to declaration of members' interest. There are standing declarations which we all publish. Are there any additional interests which members want to declare ahead of this morning's meeting? I'm not seeing anyone indicating. That's fine. We now move on to item number 4, which is the forward plan of key decisions. I'll take that through Chris first.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not sure if members have a copy of the forward plan with the papers, because the version I've got hasn't got one in, but there isn't anything on the most up-to-date version of the forward plan that would be coming to fax. So it is available on the website and I can circulate it to members if they want, but there isn't anything on there at the moment that would normally come to fax.
Okay. I've got Councillor Dale indicating to speak. Councillor Dale.
Yes, can I just go back to a scrutiny we did on the Pegasus Centre? Sorry, can you hear me? Sorry, my voice might go. Yesterday it came up under conversation during discussion at the full council about the Pegasus Centre and that we didn't get a report back, and actually our paper or documentation that we gave, and we spent a lot of time discussing it because it was quite a difficult decision to take. And that it wasn't discussed by the Cabinet. So I wonder if we could have a report back on that, please.
Okay, so this relates to a recommendation which Fax made previous meeting about the Pegasus Centre, which was then subsequently, I think, given to Cabinet for them to use in their decision-making process. Could I ask that Audrey Kingham takes this up in response to you, Councillor Dale?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Dale, just to confirm that the Cabinet took the decision the following Tuesday. The recommendation and paper from Fax was supported with the Cabinet. That decision was taken based on the contents of the report, which was particularly focused around supporting Morpeth RDA and relocating to a new site from their current site to a new partnership with Northumberland College. So really, as we discussed in the meeting, the individuals and the service users for the Riding for Disabled at the heart of those decisions. What I am happy to do is provide you with a report back to Fax, and I think we may have a gap in July that we could do that, which details the timeline and all of the transactions that have taken place throughout that report, and bring that back to Fax for committee members to review and discuss.
Thank you. Can I thank you? That it's just that it was raised by 2 members last night. It was me who rang me up and said you're still on that committee. I'm not. Can you ask them what happened, please? Thank you very much.
I've also got indicating to speak Councillor Ball.
Yeah, it's just on the same matter, to be honest. Yesterday I was really disappointed that it got the nod through from Cabinet when there was a number of concerns raised at scrutiny from the financial and operational side of stuff. So to be perfectly honest, last night I was furious, because what's the point of scrutiny if it's going to get the nod through anyway? So I really want to see that report. I want to know that the concerns that were raised here in the last meeting about this have actually been addressed. Because, as I say, what's the point of scrutiny if it's just going to get the nod through anyway? Because have them financial and operational concerns been met, or is it just that it's the easiest option? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ball. I will certainly make sure that details in the report. The report will be clear and it will focus on the report that came to Fax and our discussion and facts certainly veered from the contents that we were asked to look at. So we need to be clear to make sure that we've got a response to the report for you, and where it's possible for us to pick up some of your concerns, we'll make sure we report that too.
And I think it's also fair as well to say that we've got Councillor Guy Renner-Thompson here. You've obviously heard what we're saying this morning, and I'm sure that you'll feed that back to Cabinet. I take on board the point, scrutiny is here for a purpose. It's to help shape, frame and inform policy decision and policy decision makers. But I think the point about bringing an additional report which will address some of the concerns that the committee had is a sensible one. But I'm sure Guy will feed back the concerns voiced this morning. Okay, so on that point, we now move on the agenda to item number 5, which is the informal or pre-consultation on school organisation for the COCAT partnership, which is contained in your report on pages 7 to 20. And Sue Averson is going to take that report. Over to you, Sue.
Lovely, thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll just provide a brief commentary to the report in front of you this morning, setting out the reasons behind the consultation and the work that we've undertaken as a team, working with the head teachers and chairs of governors and governing bodies within the COCAT partnership. So FACS will be aware that the council has already approved an allocation of £25.5 million worth of capital investment for schools in the COCAT partnership. But again, like we've discussed around Berwick's investment, before committing to such an investment in school capital projects, council officers have met with school leaders collectively and individually within the partnership to discuss what structure of organisation schools should be in, and in their view the most effective in improving outcomes for pupils in all phases for the long-term sustainability of the partnership. This report sets out the findings of those meetings throughout the report and recommends that a pre-informal consultation is undertaken at the request of the head teachers and the governing bodies. But really, in terms of giving you some background to the partnership, COCAT Partnership is probably one of our smaller ones across Northumberland, serving the geographical area around Amble. So prior to 2016, the partnership itself was organised in a 3-tier system, first, middle and high. But in 2016, the middle school and the high school merged to become one split school site for children aged 9 to 18. It's quite unique in Northumberland, and it's the only one organised in that way. There does exist a mixed economy of schools within the partnership. We currently have 5 first schools, 1 primary school that extended its own age range as a result of the ANIC reorganisation, and we have obviously the high school, middle school arrangement where children are educated from 9 to 18 in 1 school. Details on each of the schools and their age ranges are contained within paragraphs 7 to 9, because again, some schools take 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, so each age range is slightly different. And again, reporting back on some of the history, in 2019 we did receive a request from all the first schools in the partnership, that's both the heads and chairs of governors, to informally consult on reorganisation of schools to primary and secondary structure. At this time, the request wasn't supported by James Calvert Spence College, the head or the governing body. Therefore, it was decided that without consensus across the partnership, that consultation shouldn't be progressed. We've also had a further delay, again with the COVID pandemic, again that has also led to us not being able to make progress within the partnership to agree a way forward. However, since the start of 2022, officers, head teachers and chairs of governors have been meeting to see if consensus could be reached on agreeing a vision for the partnership and agree the next steps to ensure the best value for Northumberland County Council's capital investment. So in terms of the details around the meetings that we've held, they are contained in paragraphs 9 to 14 within your report, that also gives you a summary of the meetings that we've held. But as a result of these discussions, 4 key areas were agreed as key issues to be addressed, and they are the need to improve key stage outcomes. That was unanimous across the partnership that was a key driver behind any investment. The need to retain more pupils in the partnership, and I'll give you some more detail on that as we go through the presentation. And also a need to improve the SEN offer within the partnership. The COCUT partnership is currently one of our partnerships that has no specialist provision within it, and also the need to invest in the buildings, which has been known for some years, hence why the investment's been in the Council's medium-term financial plan. So following the meetings with the partnership, we did agree a vision based on the 4 issues that needed to be addressed, and we all agreed that improved educational outcomes and offer for all pupils within the COCUT partnership should ensure every child meets their potential. We also agreed that improving and extending the SEND offer for children and young people in the COCUT partnership so that their needs could be met more locally and travel times are reduced significantly. We also agreed to ensure that the COCUT community supports the education model in order that the community thrives, ensure that all schools work together to develop the partnership and to create a sustainable, viable model of education for the future that meets the wider needs of the community, and ensure, finally, to ensure the best value for Northumberland County Council's capital investment. So one of the key areas for the vision is to improve educational outcomes. And within your report, in paragraphs 21 and 22, the educational outcomes and Ofsted results are also contained within the report. But to highlight just 3 areas, really, just to remind everyone that Key Stage 1 assessments are undertaken by children at the end of Year 2 within their first schools, and this data isn't currently published. However, within the current organisation, Key Stage 2 is split, with Years 3 and 4 being taught in their first schools and Years 5 and 6 being taught at James Calvert Spence. The Key Stage 2 assessments didn't take place in 2020 or 21 due to the COVID pandemic, so the last validated data we have for Key Stage 2 results was in 2019, and at this time James Calvert Spence results were the lowest in the county, and these results are shown at table 4 within your report. Also within your report shown at table 5 in paragraph 22, you'll see that James Calvert Spence results in 2019 for GCSE are stronger when compared to both the county and national levels. And overall, their result has placed James Calvert Spence 11 out of 16 high and secondary schools within Northumberland, and their Progress 8 results also shown in the table are also strong, and they're ranked 6th within 16 across the county. Another area to be addressed in improving is improving the SEND offer. As I've already said, the COCUT partnership doesn't currently have any specialist provision for children and young people with SEND. And as a result of that, we currently have 60 children with education, health and care plans travelling outside of their local community. They're attending 11 different establishments in order to have their special educational needs met. Therefore, the head teachers and the local authority agree that there needs to be some additional SEN support within the COCUT partnership, and this consultation will ask specific questions around how those needs can be met more locally, particularly for ASD and SEMH, without the children having to travel outside of their partnership. Viability, again, as we have spoken previously about Berwick, is also a challenge for the COCUT partnership. Currently, we have nearly 1,700 children live within the COCUT partnership, and 450 of those are choosing not to attend their local schools within the COCUT partnership and are choosing to travel to other school partnerships. Therefore, the need to retain more children locally and within their partnership, again, is a agreed priority for this project. And again, ensuring best value, as I've already said, Cabinet approved the £25.5 million investment in the partnership, but we need to ensure that any structure is a structure that we invest in for the future. I think another key element is ensuring Obviously, those 450 parents that are choosing to send their children elsewhere choose to keep their children in their local schools, and therefore ensuring that the Coquet community supports the education model in order that the schools thrive, again, was a key priority for the vision. Therefore, in order to seek the views of the community, Cabinet has been asked to support the request from the head teachers and governing bodies of the schools in the Coquet Partnership to carry out a consultation on the proposals for schools to be organised into a two-tier structure. The models for consultation, again, are set out in paragraph 26 of the report, but really just to highlight that within any reorganisation proposals, the current structure of schools form part of that consultation process, and therefore this would be expressed as the status quo within the consultation document and shown as Model A within your report. So again, all schools would remain the same within Model A. Within Model B, this is as at the request of the head teachers that we would look to extend the age ranges of all the first schools to become primary schools, and they would keep years 5 and 6 in a phased way in future years to come. We do have a challenge around Amble First School, as it is currently on a very restricted site. There are no outdoor playing fields at all on that site. So the model currently suggests that that school would relocate to the existing buildings used by James Calvert-Spence at South Avenue in order that the school can expand and also have some outdoor play facilities that they currently don't have. We've also, using the opportunity of this consultation, to revise the planned admission number for Red Row. Unusually is 29, and we were just using this as a tidying up exercise to take that to 30, which is obviously the standard planned admission number for a one-form entry primary school. The model also suggests that James Calvert-Spence would reduce its age range because, again, it's not just a high school. So this consultation doesn't involve school closures. It's a changing of age range at each of the schools involved. And therefore, James Calvert-Spence in this model, we would suggest would change their age range from being a school that operates from age 9 to 18 to age 11 to 18, and that would take effect from September 2023 at the earliest. But again, if informal pre-consultation is approved, more detail around programming and people's views on when any change should take place would also form part of that consultation. So really the next steps, if approved, the pre-informal consultation would begin on the 11th of May and would close on the 29th of June, with any reports coming back to FACS and Cabinet in September, allowing officers the 6 weeks holiday to review the feedback. So during the time of consultation, during the consultation period, a document will be published on the Council's website, as is normal custom and practice for us, which would also be sent to all interested parties and would be circulated to all relevant stakeholders, including parents via our schools, staff at the effective schools and neighbouring schools from other school partnerships. The report also sets out in details in paragraphs 4 and 5 as to how the consultation events will be held, and at least one public event, as well as meetings with each school staff and governing body at each of the 7 schools directly impacted by the proposals, would also be undertaken. So overall, the feedback received from the majority of schools clearly point to the desire to carry out a consultation on the proposals for schools to be organised within a two-tier structure. Therefore, officers are recommending to Cabinet to approve the initial 6 weeks pre-consultation to take place from the 11th of May to the 29th of June on proposals for a two-tier model of organisation within the Coquet Partnership. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Sue. I was going to bring Guy in anyway, but I just want to say that I'm really keen that people understand that an informal or pre-consultation at the end of it is not the end of it. It is then going to move to a more nuanced, detailed consultation, if that is what Cabinet are minded to do. So the views of residents and community, which I'm sure you will all pick up in your comments, are really vital at this stage. So if I can bring in Guy first, then obviously I'm happy to bring in other speakers as well.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Of course, I'd echo those comments that this is the start of the pre-formal consultation, but it's not the start of the consultation that we've been having within the council and within the schools themselves. This is only made possible by the commitment from the administration of this £25 million to build a new high school, but the discussions have been going on for some years, beginning with the first schools themselves asking to move to a two-tier system, then going through the process with the high school. So this really has been a schools-led process that I'm very proud of. There has been some talk and concern on social media about this bringing to school closures if they went to a two-tier system, but this report, that's not what this is about. We're not looking at any school closures. We're simply looking at changing the tier system from, well, it's beginning a consultation to change the tier system from 3 to 2, which would be relatively straightforward in Amble, given the middle and the high school are already on the same site under one leadership body. Thank you.
So I've got 2 people indicating to speak. I've got Mr Hodgson, I've got Paul Rickard, and then Richard Dodd. That's 3. So in that order.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, just reading through there, I mean, I can fully understand the need for this review and the informal consultation, given the issues highlighted. But going from a 3-tier to a 2-tier is not necessarily a silver bullet as far as raising standards are concerned. And if you look at that data, it's a red flag. And obviously the drop has been since 2016, according to your data there. Now, obviously we can't comment on 20 and 21, but I'd be interested to know what the targets are, the predictions targets for the school are for 2022, because if nothing's addressed at this point there, this whole process, and by the time it becomes 2-tier, could be 3, 4, 5 years down the line there. What is being done at the moment to raise the standards? What support or challenge is being given to the James Spence Community School there?
I think David Street, who's Deputy Director of Education, wants to pick that up.
If I can just come in there, there has been quite a number of support packages put forward to support the partnership as a whole, particularly in and around James Calvert Spence. They've been judged by Ofsted to be required improvement for a number of years now. In more recent times, there has been an impact on the intervention and support offered to the school, and also the school moving itself forwards, and that the most recent monitoring visits from Ofsted are saying that the school is taking effective actions. I think that there will be some proof in the pudding in terms of some of the outcomes, particularly at Key Stage 2. There will be continuing support in and around the schools, but actually the reflection that the first schools were all judged good by Ofsted, I think possibly keeping that responsibility for Key Stage 2 with those schools could be the next step if it's agreed, and to further take on the improvement work that's being made across the latter half of Key Stage 2 now at James Calvert Spence, so that we make improvements now and then continue to make improvements going forwards.
So what are the predictions for this year?
I don't know specifically the predictions for this year. Making predictions for this year is going to be more difficult than ever in light of the pandemic for any school.
Yes.
And there is a history where predictions within this partnership and then outcomes have been quite different. So there probably is some value in exploring that, and there is exploration work done with James Calvert Spence via the SIP service in order to estimate what the outcomes are likely to be. The SATS test will be taking place next week. We do look forward to a more positive outcome for those learners. Knowing what the predictions were, I think it's a bit of a black art to actually be as accurate as we could have been in the past and should have been in the past.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that it's certainly going to be an increase on the 27% 2019.
You would certainly hope so.
Given your package, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, against the issues that all schools will be finding at Key Stage 2 this year, where we've got learners that have had a challenging last 2 years. And I think we'd probably find, let's say any school anywhere in the country will be struggling to predict what its Key Stage 2 outcomes are going to be this year, because of the pandemic and some of the interruptions to some of the learning that's taking place.
Before we go on, can I just ask, there are a number of microphones which are live. So if I could just ask that you, perfect, thank you. Does that address your question? I think, in effect, what we're saying is building a new shiny school or schools is great, but we have to address performance as well. And I think the schools improvement team have been doing an exemplary job across the whole of the school sector. And I think that's, David, what you're partly articulating there about the input which has been put in from the authority into the school to support it. I think that's, in effect, what you were saying there.
I think the main indicator we've got at the moment for improvement from that work is the Ofsted monitoring visits to James Calvert Spence, which is saying the school is taking effective actions.
So, I have some other speakers. I've got Paul Rickard and then I've got Richard Dodd. So, Paul.
Thanks, Wayne. I think just a question about the 450 children moving elsewhere. And I think the unintended consequence of if we then retain the children in this partnership, obviously those children are artificially building, in effect, or supporting other schools. So understanding the unintended consequence of writing one, which then could mean we then have another issue in another partnership. And I guess there's more than likely going to have to be a period of transition as parents gain confidence. But then I'll be nervous about schools and recruitment whereby there's not going to be enough children in the system as we take it across all 10 local authorities in the North East as the numbers shrink. Will there be an eye on that, I guess? I'm sure there will be from officers about how do you then manage as children and parents make that decision to go back to a successful partnership. And I guess the report would be useful if we could cover off what the unintended consequence could be of success on the other partnership next door, because we've seen that transition, we've seen it in all the schools, haven't we, where people have then voted with their feet elsewhere. You take those out, where those schools have then been full, they're then not going to be full. Are we going to create another problem that really we could do with heading off at the pass before we get to that point? So we're almost being proactive, but I realise how complicated it is, but just that was a comment. In terms of consultation, fully support this. I think it's something that's been in the offing for an awfully long time, and I think will be a positive.
Just pick up on that point about that connectivity with other partnerships.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously part of this consultation will involve the other partnerships and neighbouring schools as part of the consultation. And predominantly those 450 children are leaving at secondary. You know, the first schools hold on to their children quite well. The movement comes at secondary. So there's already been conversations with neighbouring high and secondary schools about these proposals coming forward. And I think they're also supportive of it, but I will wait to get that in writing and report back to you. And in terms of Mr Hodgson's question as well, I'll make sure that we do report this current year's outcomes in the report that will come back to committee in September, so that we're really clear about the impact that the school improvement team are having on the outcomes, as well as the opportunities North East, because James Calvert Spence is also part of a national programme of support as well through the RSC and more broadly. So again, the opportunity to report back on that in terms of outcomes, we'll make sure we include that in the next report as well. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Dodd.
Yeah, a while ago, I was chairman of FACS, and the vice chairman was Robert Arkless, councillor for Amble. I will seek his opinion on this, because he generally was a relatively level-headed fella, and I don't know if he does social media or what, but you mentioned social media, and I think we need to react to anything that's in there. But Robert, I'm sure, will be absolutely over the moon that there's a £25+ million investment going into the schools in this partnership, because he did crow on a lot about it, saying, you know, we need to do something with this, it needs attention. So I'm over the moon that this is happening, and I will find out what his views are. However, I'd also spent a lot of time on something called the LDF, which is the Local Development Framework, which is now being passed and is live, as in how many houses are being built. And I want to ask, because on my recollection, there was 1,300 down for Amble alone. There were other settlements around there, so I'm sure that would clip into 1,500, if not beyond. Is this being factored in? You know, I'm just saying, and I understand the previous speaker saying about, you know, pupils that don't come or whatever. Because if we do get a shiny new school, I'm sure, or whatever, it will attract. And if there's 1,300 to 1,500 new properties, there will be an increase in catchment or the numbers coming through. All I want to just remind is it big enough? And because it's obviously cheaper to build something now rather than wait until changes upon us. Thank you.
Yes, again, committee members will remember on an annual basis we bring our school organisation plan to committee that sets out how we actually plan the way that we monitor our birth rates and pupil movement. So again, I think you'll see in the report that what we're suggesting that is that already, you know, I think, you know, within the report it identifies that currently 23% surplus places within James Calvert-Spence. Again, we're not proposing to reduce the planned admission number into James Calvert-Spence. So what that will mean is that we have got capacity should the pupil numbers increase as a result of the housing. It has surprised us quite a bit, I will be honest, in Amble to see the level of house building that has gone up that isn't currently having an impact on pupil numbers coming through the schools. It will probably be a massive baby boom at some point. I'm sure something will happen, but it is monitored on an annual basis to make sure we have got enough places in the right place at the right time. But I think the proposal in front of you today does give us some headroom to cope with any increases in pupil numbers as a result of the housing development. Thank you.
I've got 3 speakers now. Councillor Ball, Councillor Fellis-Aitken and Guy Renner-Thompson. So in that order.
Thanks, Chair. So, welcome this investment. It's much needed in the area. First question, 25.5 million, is that going to be enough? Number 2, I do have concerns about a 2-tier system. Obviously, there is the financial implications that will save money, but is it the best system? Will it deliver the best outcomes for young people? Has there been any research done from going from 3 to 2-tier systems and the outcomes of them schools when they do change? Because not everybody thrives in a big environment, and that includes not just the pupils but the staff as well. So I do have concerns around that. With regards to the human resources issue that's raised and the implications, what's the financial impact of that and the people impact on that? Will there be redundancies? If so, what's going to be the cost implications? The sports and recreation facilities, what are they going to be first off, and also will they actually be used and enhance the local community as well? And one other question, with regards to age ranges, who sets these within schools? Because I have massive concerns that any school should be from 9 to 18, because I just think it's a 9-year-old and an 18-year-old, it's different worlds. And obviously there is vulnerabilities within having them ages in the same areas. Thank you.
Thanks. I might need some reminders as we go along, but I'll try and pick up the points that you've made. So, in terms of the age range and the change there, again, that was a consultation undertaken by the local authority because the school is a maintained school, but it was the suggestion of the governing body at the time. And it was their suggestion, so that consultation was had and it was implemented. It is something quite different. Obviously, the education professionals' view was that they would make that work, and that's the system that we ended up with. So, in terms of the £25.5 million, sitting here today, I don't know whether it will be enough, but that is the work that we will be undertaking as part of the consultation. While the consultation is developing, we will be working up costs and models in the background to work up a robust budget. Exactly like you saw the last time that we met with Astley, an outline business case will be worked upon and will come to this committee should any final decisions need to be made about any changes, whatever they may be. That will be, the budget will feed in to the process as we actually go through the process. Because I think, has already been pointed out, this is the start of a conversation. What I've tried to highlight in the in the report and the presentation this morning are the issues that are facing the partnership, and the view of the education professionals in the partnership is that a two-tier structure would address those issues that have been raised. But the consultation is really clear. These are the issues that we've got. This is what we think might sort these issues or will sort these issues out. Actually, have you got any other ideas? And that is what pre-informal consultation is about. It's about seeking people's views. We have this idea, what alternatives have you got? We've had that conversation with the heads and chairs of governors, and obviously what I'm presenting to you today is what they believe will address the issues that face them. But there may be more come out of consultation, and I think you've heard me say many times in this committee, we start on a journey of consultation, and what you start off with as an idea very often is not the thing that we come back to say that we're going to implement. You know, ANIC, various consultations there, that was going to be a merger of a middle school that ended up being whole-scale reorganisation within the partnership. So we'll see. This is the start of a journey. In terms of HR issues, yeah, it's really important to us, should reorganisation be approved. But again, what we try to do, or what we have done in the past and been very successful in the past, is develop a staffing protocol. So what that does is make sure that from this point forward, or next Tuesday when Cabinet makes a decision, if there are to be any changes within the structure, that jobs are not advertised outside of the partnership, that there are slotting in. What we're doing here is we're moving age ranges, we're not closing anything, and therefore the staff will follow the children, and that is the principle that sits within a staffing protocol. So people might choose to leave, they might choose to move to other locations, but again, that's natural wastage that would normally happen. So again, we've got a really good track record, and ANIC was a large reorganisation. I think 15 schools was a large amount to undertake, and I think we ended up with probably 6 people choosing again not to take employment, again predominantly because of travel. Again, Amble's a lot smaller partnership, so you would hope there would be opportunities for everybody. So implementation would be 2 or 3 years down the line. What the staffing protocol would do would make sure that any vacancies in that period of time are kept within the partnership, and potentially those at risk would be looked at before anything else was done. So it's tried and tested, and hopefully fully supported by the unions in the past when we've done it in other partnerships. So we'll have a group of people that specifically look after staff through these changes as well.
Thank you.
I think that was everything. Was there? Oh, community use. Yeah. Yeah. So again, I think like you've seen with Astley, the opportunity as part of this consultation is to talk to the whole community, and let's see what local sporting clubs need, what their views are. So again, as the outline business case for investment develops, the opportunities for community use, again, I'm sure is something that the schools will encourage and want to happen. So yes, it will definitely form part of any proposals coming back. Thank you.
Councillor Fellis-Aitken.
Yes. Thank you. You were saying about firstly about the middle school site and the high school site being the only one in the county. Well, it's not. It's HMS and QE have kind of done that with federated on one site. Is that not the same issue? No.
No, it's not the same because they're 2 separate schools. So HMS is a middle school and QE is a high school. What we're talking about here, it's one school, age 8 to 19. They've only got one unique reference number. It's one school, one inspection.
Thank you.
So it is different.
Obviously, I mentioned this the last time, and the 25 million is brilliant, and I had the same concerns as Mr Hodgson about the focus on the external or the internal, and it being kind of sticking plaster, because if you're going to move everything over from really good local authority schools to academies, parents get very jittery, and we saw this in Hexham, and thus the consultation needs to be a really sort of thorough, transparent one with school link-ups. Now I see that there's a lot of stuff online and you can request hard copies and you'll be working with the schools. I mean, we certainly felt in the school the middle school where I was governor, that we needed sort of more focus coming into the schools and talking to parents about the concerns they had, whether it was good first schools shutting in areas where we wanted families to move in, or the accountability of the academy once the thing had been sorted, which parents understandably worried about because you're kind of losing control, you're giving that over. Now, looking at what Councillor Ball said about, is there any information? Obviously, we know the National Middle Schools Forum provides the information, and middle schools are, the three-tier system is actually a very, very good system, and there's a lot of data on that website to look at to say that that is the case in rural areas. Now, and I mentioned this last time about in the Berwick meeting that we had, Suffolk went to three-tier rural Suffolk in 2019, and it's not doing very well. Now, I know COVID's been in between, and we can have those discussions after results come out, I suppose, but that is not successful. And, my concerns are to make a good consultation, I would like these issues to be addressed with parents on site, physically in person, not just at a drop-in, kind of to make it really, really fully accountable, and working with the Regional Schools Commissioner, who it'll be handed over to make that accountable if we're going to give them a mat. Does that make any sense? Just, it's not really a question, it's more of suggestions about how the consult should be run and what I felt the failings of the Hexham consult were, although we got what we wanted in the end, is to kind of make sure that the parents have this information about good middle school systems, about academies and Regional Schools Commission accountability.
Okay, so in the partnership, all schools are local authority maintained schools. They're not multi-academy trusts. There's no role in this consultation for the RSC because they are the local authority maintained schools. The council's cabinet will be the decision maker on this, not the Regional Schools Commissioner. We did speak to the schools themselves. That was part of their, the meetings that we've been having with them since January about their views about becoming joining a multi-academy trust, whether it was something, and they felt that it wasn't anything that they wanted to explore at this time. But again, that doesn't stop the opportunity for parents to seek those views. But again, I think the local authority is carrying out this consultation on behalf of the head teachers. If parents have got questions of their head teachers, they're there every day, that there'll be the opportunity for the schools themselves to meet with their parents and have the discussions that they need to. There will then still be the opportunity to meet with us as the local authority to set out the more strategic discussions around school transport, implementation of any change. So we will be having individual meetings at the school, but that's for the parents, that's for the staff and the governors. If the individual schools want our support, then we're more than happy to provide our support, but it's their request and it's their consultation. We're facilitating it, so we'll be there if they need us. Great. Okay, thank you.
Guy Runner-Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to what Councillor Dodd said, if all the houses in Amble that have planning permission get built, Amble will be bigger than Alnwick. It'll be a bigger settlement than Alnwick. That's an important thing to point out, because many years ago at the start of all this, there were those who would say, oh, Amble High School's too small to become a secondary school, it's not sustainable. Why don't we close it and the kids can go to Alnwick or Morpeth? I've very firmly put my foot down and said, no, that's definitely not something we're going to do. Amble needs a high school or a secondary school because it is going to become bigger than Alnwick. There's huge amounts of house building going on down there. So this is a firm commitment. And based just on from what the previous two speakers were saying, I'll just reiterate that this is not a local authority top-down reorganisation. It is requests that have come from the schools themselves that we are responding to.
Thank you for that. So I've got Councillor Dale. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then Councillor Hodgson again.
Sorry, turned it off, turn it on again. Can I just go back to one or two things that, about some various things that people have said during the discussion. First of all, can I say I agree totally with Alan Hodgson. The high school, has been in difficulties for years. It sits along Berwick High School, and the County Council, now this is going back to 2008-9, there has been issues, and the concern I have is they've been long-term, and therefore spending 25 million pounds is actually not the answer, particularly to the improvement of those children's education. And I think I need to say that very clearly. So, you know, fine, everybody would like 25,000, everybody would like a no school, but that is not actually the answer at the present time to actually making sure that we allow these children, let them and help them to have a really good education, and that is not happening at the present time. So I confer with Alan exactly that there has to be some input there at a higher level by this council, and to ensure that even whichever model they go through, that actually they get all the help they need and more, because obviously it's an overlying, it's a long-term issue concern. That's one point. Just to say, the other thing is, the other various things was in the report we do have under 6, on page 8, note should Cabinet approve the initiation of informal consultation, the outcomes presented to Cabinet may include a recommendation to permit the publication of statutory proposals for relevant schools in the co-partnership. Will that come to scrutiny before that is moved?
Yes, it will. Yes, that's the usual. Yeah. Pre-scrutinise every decision in terms of consultation
before the Cabinet.
Yeah, because this
will come through.
Yeah, it's drafted as a Cabinet report. That's why the wording is such. Sorry.
Yeah, I can understand the schools, all the schools, looking at saying about discussing academisation, because academisation is another step, and I think they've got enough steps to manage now, which is actually bringing themselves together. And if they do decide to go to two-tier, I'm not altogether sure that I always support two-tier, because I've actually spoken against it, especially in the rural areas where small schools are very much part of a sustainable community. And I would hate to see the loss of everybody sitting there saying, oh, the council is going to move to two-tier, because we will lose a lot of really good first schools. I don't want this to think everybody, this is actually where we're going. The council is moving forward to two-tier, because I don't agree with that. It can be helpful in areas maybe like Amble, which is close, and actually it's a sustainable town. It's not a small village, so it won't have any impact on the future sustainability of the town itself. There was one other thing I was going to ask you, was the level. Sorry, I'm going to have. Can I have a drink before I lose my voice altogether? Just right, following the GCSE results, there's obviously quite a loss in the number of children who go on to A-levels. And I don't know where, obviously they go to other forms of education or apprenticeships. How big is that loss?
I'm sorry, I don't know the answer, but I can get it for you outside of the meeting.
Yeah, I would like to know, because obviously from
its destination post 16 is that?
Sorry,
it's the destination post 16. Is that the question?
Yes.
You'd like to know what the split is?
What
How many stay on to school,
yeah,
and how many do other
yes,
things?
I'd like to know what the movement is, because obviously we would like them to stay on. And there's quite a loss, but it would be good to know why and what they're actually doing, and whether it's because of the poor results or what, I don't know. But we need to look into that as well. So you've got the difference between Key Stage 2, but also you've got this issue further on. And I just think that I would like to see these looked into, ensure that they do get the help they need. And as I said, it's not just about money, it's about actually having good performance. So that's my other point. I don't think there's anything else. I was just catching up what everybody was saying.
So I think what we'll do is we'll pick up on that destination point afterwards. But again, I think it's just to reaffirm that this is the start of a conversation. And it is, obviously we've had a lot of comments made this morning, and I'm sure many of those comments will be picked up by members of the public, parents, communities, educators in those areas during this proposal. Oh, sorry, Audrey, you wanted to speak. My apologies, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. Just to give you some assurance, and you will recall we've discussed this as part of skills strategy, as part of our post-16 destinations. So we will make sure it is a big focus for us more broadly, and it is part of our priorities at each of the key stages, ensuring that our pupils make the right choices. It would be, would be utopia if every child chose to do A-levels, if that was their particular choice and move on and stay in school or vocational. Our role is to ensure that we support schools so that their vocational offers are relevant to their locality, that they're able to produce, as Mr Hodgson said, really good, strong results. And for us, that is a big aspect and focus. The other aspect is then, so if they're not staying at school, what is their post-16 destination in Northumberland? What we do know is that a number of years ago, too many children left Northumberland at the Key Stage 4 point, and we have spent the last couple of years working really hard against a tide of lots of challenges that we all know about, but working really closely, and you will see some of that come through in our future reports. So the next scrutiny, I think, has the Education Strategy Board, and Mr Hodgson will be delighted that I think the School Improvement Service report comes at the next facts as well. So you would imagine that we're setting all these up in response to the questions, but that's not the case. They're scheduled in. So you will be able to hear much more detail around the activity that's going on as a result of the work we've put in place.
Mr Hodgson, I think you wanted to come in. I inadvertently missed you and inadvertently downgraded you to the role of a councillor, which I do apologise for. Mr Hodgson.
No, so I was just going to pick up on the SEND issue there. What sort of provision do you envisage for SEND in the Colgate partnership? And how does this, or how will it fit in with your sort of overall SEND strategy for Northumberland?
Yeah, again, I think it's one of the questions. We have done SEN workshop with the head teachers, setting out our predicted data to look at how, I suppose, what the ideal opportunities would be. I think the view of the partnership currently is that some form of specialist provision does need to be provided within the partnership, whether that's a special school, whether that's an additional resource provision attached to one of the schools. That is the detail that we'll work up and ask questions in the informal consultation. But again, I think, the opportunities to open a brand new school, for instance, as a special school, obviously would have to go down a free school route as a local authority. We can't open new schools, but what we can do is open satellite provision from existing special schools. So again, local special schools are also being involved in the conversations in order that we can come up with a strategy to provide some additional support that meets the needs of the children. And I think it's, it's understanding those needs and predicting them moving forward will have a greatest influence on what the proposal would be, whether there is an opportunity for a sustainable satellite provision from a special school, or whether, some more flexibility in terms of a smaller number of places as a pop-up ARP, additional resource provision, in a mainstream setting. So I think we're looking at a number of options, not only in the Colgate partnership, but across the whole of Northumberland, as you rightly said, around, a capacity strategy about how we're going to grow provision to meet those needs. And again, that's a future report that's going to come through to FACS in September that will talk more broadly about provision across the whole of the county. And hopefully this report on this consultation will come into that committee as well, so it'll join up there.
So what I was going to say was presumably this vision will link up with what we discussed about Berwick.
Yes, absolutely.
That's what
absolutely.
I'm saying. So, I mean, joining up all the dots.
Yeah. That's right. And again, that's as we get more intelligence and we get better at predicting our numbers coming through. So that's what's happening at the moment, is we're gathering information from a number of sources to help us to predict. But again, this is everything that I've said probably for about the last 6 FACS meetings. It's about the demands that we've got for ASD, SEMH. Some of the intelligence are telling us that children start off with a speech, language and communication diagnosis that then comes into SEMH, ASD. So they're the 3 areas of of diagnosis that we're looking at in order to influence our planning moving forward. But hopefully you'll be able to see that when it comes in September, that, you know, these are the challenges we've got. This is the numbers that we're predicting for the next 5 years, and here's our strategy for the next 5 years about how we're going to address that, bearing in mind, you know, our overall SEN strategy about our graduated approach, meeting our needs closer to home. All of that you'll see as a golden thread that will run through that strategy when it comes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So, we've had quite a comprehensive debate this morning. Go on, Councillor Dale, I'll indulge you one last.
I did have a handout and I wanted to respond to it for you. Just to say thank you for that, because that's useful, because it's those people, children, students who leave.
Councillor Dale, could you put your mic on, please?
I know, I keep on starting. Thank you. What I was saying was, I want to say thank you, because it's the issue about the children or pupils who leave with no destination. And that is something that obviously, you know, if parents are looking to where to take their children, send their school, then, you know, the outcome is not good if there's, you know, a lot of them have no destination and they know they're opting out. Can I just say that we have ongoing concerns about, obviously, the council with the achievements of both Berwick and John Calvert Trust over a long period of time. If we could have a paper, actually, how the County Council is hoping to manage these concerns long term, because it won't be short term, because they've been there too long, but it's something that we really need to understand as members. I mean, I've been through the school and closing it down, changing heads and everything else, but that's worked. But on this case, it's been long term on both sides, and I said long term since I've been on 2008. So it's no change, and it's still struggling. And I just think if we knew what the struggling is, or what the struggles are, then that would help us understand what work you have to do to achieve, to make a difference.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. I think I need to be really clear to say that both schools are in a position where they have improved, and Ofsted has confirmed that. So both from a formal inspection of Berwick, they have moved from a category into a requires improvement. It's still not good enough, and the school recognises that. But they are definitely on a journey, and they are working really closely with us, particularly around the education model that's required moving forward in terms of the wider Berwick, not just Berwick Academy. James Calvert is in the same position as David talked earlier. So Ofsted has confirmed we are expecting that they will have a full inspection within a relatively short window, and that will again confirm perhaps that earlier discussion. Both schools have had significant investment, both from regional schools commissioners. Berwick is an academy, it's an academy trust, and James Calvert is part of the One Vision programme more broadly. That's not to say that the local authority hasn't also worked with both schools to put in significant investment. I'm sure you'll hear some of that coming through in the next school improvement report. If that isn't then sufficient for you, then we'll look to see how we can address your questions.
Thank you very much. So, you have in front of you pages 7 to 8, 6 recommendations. Effectively, our request to go to Cabinet with our views. The views have been noted, but I think from reading the room, we are minded to support that. We recommend that Cabinet does move to a pre-informal consultation within the COCAT area. I'm just looking around, I'm seeing lots of nods on that one. So on that basis, I'm happy for a summary of our discussion to go to Cabinet, and we obviously have the Cabinet member here this morning, who I'm sure will convey that support for that conversation to start within the COCAT area. So thank you very much for that detailed response this morning. If we can now move on to item number 6 on your agenda, which is an update on future arrangements for the delivery of early help locality services in Northumberland. That one's going to be taken by Mary Connor, I understand. Mary's Head of Service at Children's Social Care. So Mary, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Members will remember that we brought a report last month detailing how we were responding to the government drive around family hubs, and this is really building on that report. Because as a result of that development and that initiative, we really feel that to do this effectively, we need to change our current delivery model. To get to this position, I'd want to assure members that officers have done a very detailed business analysis and SWOT analysis behind this to arrive at this position, because we're very mindful that the arrangements that have been in place with the two organisations who are currently commissioned are very long-standing, and we haven't arrived at this decision lightly at all. As is set out in the key issues, there's a kind of a long history dating back to the early 2000s, from the days of Sure Start, which some people I'm sure will remember, when there was a requirement on local authorities in the development of that initiative to partner with VCS organisations. And that's very much the history of why in the south east and central localities we continue to have had a commissioning arrangement, whereas in the north and the west, which were later developments under the Children's Centre initiative, they are actually managed by Northumberland County Council. I mean, I suppose what you would see as well is that what we've done is change the delivery model over time. So in 2017, we went out to commission for a 0 to 19 service, which was a change from the 0 to 5 service previously, in response to the developments of early help services in Northumberland, to become more holistic around kind of a whole family basis, not just for very young children. And we arrived at, and commissioned for a mixed model of delivery. So in both the South East and Central, we have a mix of sort of practitioners who work for either Action for Children or Barnardo's in the regardless of the locality, or NCC, but the actual service manager, the locality manager, is an NCC employee. However, the overall management of those localities is still commissioned out to Barnardo's and Action for Children. What we're finding is as we look to develop quickly and flexibly with the very fast-paced changing agenda of family hubs and the integration model that where we're working really closely with our health partners, particularly Harrogate Development Trust as the new deliverer for 0 to 19, is that what we really need is to be able to flex and move and develop resources in an integrated working model. And we feel that actually entering into a new commissioning arrangement at this point in time would make that difficult. The current commissioning arrangements, as I said, have been in place since 2017, and we've extended those because of the pandemic, predominantly. We've extended those, but they are due to come to an end at the end of September 22. Is the current contract extension end. We don't feel that commissioning again to a particular service structure would give us that flex. It would take up a lot of officer time to keep recommissioning on a very regular basis. And we also acknowledge that even though Barnardo's and Action for Children, as the current deliverers, have worked very flexibly with us, that they have their own service structures, which mean that they have to have certain things in place. They have certain pricing structures in place for other people working out of the buildings that they manage, which don't always align with what we need and don't always give us the consistency that we want across the county when we're talking to our partner agencies. And this is currently taking up quite a lot of management time, both through our operational senior manager and commissioning manager, which we feel would be better used in developing our services going forward so that we're fit for the future. I think, as I've said in the report, all the buildings that are currently within those localities, bar the Blythe West building, which is owned by Barnardo's, are actually owned by NCC and leased to Action for Children or Barnardo's under the terms of the commissioning arrangement. And we would be proposing to bring those back under the management of NCC to allow us to support our co-location agenda with health partners and others, and also to develop or continue to develop and build on our relationships with voluntary and community sector organisations in those areas to create that holistic family hub model as we want going forward. So we're asking members to support the two recommendations of bringing those services into NCC, under NCC management, understanding that the additional costs that I've set out, which are approximate at this point in time, because obviously until we know kind of the full staffing arrangements that we wouldn't get until this was agreed and we began the sort of HR processes, that those costs can be met by new money coming into the local authority through the Support and Families grant, which aligns very much with the development and delivery of the Family Hub model. So wouldn't have a cost on existing budgets within children's social care.
Thank you very much for that, Mary. Very comprehensive. So I'm going to open this up to questions. Councillor Watson at the back, and then I've got Councillor Ball.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to know how it's really going to impact on the Blythe West Children's Centre, because obviously there's a number of services that are in there. So what's going to happen to the services if that's not going to come back under the NCC umbrella? Is there going to be like partnership arrangements with that particular centre? Just a worry that that centre might struggle if it doesn't have all of the services there, and it is very well used in Blythe. I would hate to see it close. And the other one would just be on the announcement and funding. I believe that you were due to get the announcement on the 26th of April, so just wondered if you have got the figure and whether that's enough.
Okay, so on the first point, in terms of Blythe West Children's Centre, yes, I absolutely understand your concern. What I would say to assure you that regardless of what happens with the building, the services that are offered currently within that building would continue to be offered within the Blythe area. We have a very big building at Blythe Central, which is just 5 minutes away. And we would also, we would look to be creative about the delivery of those services. The Blythe West building itself is owned by Bernardo's. I suppose until we're in a position where this proposal is agreed here, we haven't been able to begin any formal conversations with Bernardo's around that. We have, behind the scenes, had some initial conversations around with our property services to highlight to them kind of what might be in place, but that is going to need further development if it's agreed today that we take forward this recommendation. Ultimately, it's obviously Bernardo's decision as to what they want to do with that building, because it's owned by them, but I would want to reassure you that the services being offered from that building will continue to be delivered in the Blythe area. And then in terms of the second point around the money, I think when I wrote this report, I was possibly being a little overly optimistic about central government's ability to give us that. So we don't actually have that funding figure at the moment. We do have our indicative funding amounts for our Supporting Families grant for the next 3 years, which would more than cover the costs for this proposal.
Councillor Ball.
Thanks, Chair. So just some of my questions. First off, I just want to say thank you to Action for Children and Bernardo's for the great work that they've done, especially in the Ashton area. With regards to going forward, funding models, obviously, it's to me, this seems like a bit of a rebranding exercise and changing it into family centre and family hubs. What more is it bringing to the table for the communities that these are going to be in? Because they're already children's centres as such. So what extra are they actually going to bring to the table for the extra money that's going to be outlaid? Also, with regards to, you mentioned that working again with the community and voluntary sector long term. How are you going to work with the community and voluntary sector when you are to be transferring the staff into the NCC service, then almost looking for them to, because obviously the community and voluntary sector they are able to apply for funding that's not available to local authorities. is, and like the likes of Action for Children bring a lot of money into the local community for projects and things that need a quick and reactive service as well. How can we guarantee that long term that NCC can still deliver that to the standard that we've currently had and ensure that it's going to be the same level? Because I do have concerns that if we take the staff of community and voluntary organisations that are currently delivering the model, what happens when we go back to them and say that actually we need your help to be able to fund and exercise? I do have great concerns on that, because they have done great work and brought a lot of local money back into the local economy as well.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, in terms of the connections with the VCS, I mean, absolutely, I would totally agree that Barnardo's and Action for Children have both been really positive, long-standing partners with us, and this is absolutely no reflection on the services that they deliver. In terms of our links with that wider voluntary and community sector, that's absolutely something that we're developing and wanting to continue to develop, and we've got really good links with Northumberland communities together and the development of the community hubs in both of those areas. I think what I would say is actually Action for Children and Barnardo's, because of the size of them, they're actually not able to apply for as many of the pots of money as some of the smaller voluntary and community sector organisations that are more local. And one of the things that we're really keen to do is develop more links and relationships with those smaller local voluntary organisations to support their added value, particularly at kind of a really kind of grassroots community level. I think what we're very clear about is that this is not excluding or precluding any future possible partner arrangements for pieces of work with either Barnardo's or Action for Children, you know, because there will be opportunities, I'm sure, and services that they deliver going forward. What we're talking about is the overall management of the services and the staff that sit within those, who work really closely in partnership with NCC staff already under an NCC model that's been delivered over the last few years. What we need to be able to do is flex and move that really quickly in an integrated way going forward. I think in the paper that we brought last month around the family hubs, I think what we've said, it acknowledged that obviously this is a fairly quick moving piece. I think we're in a really good position in Northumberland in that a lot of the areas that are kind of stated within the family hubs as services they want to see delivered, we already have, and I said I think last time that we've been in a very fortunate position in Northumberland, that we've kept a lot of investment in our early help and children's centre services. The family hub model, I'm hoping, it broadens that out to that 0 to 19 agenda, much more kind of formally from a central government perspective. It also is going to bring, I think, hopefully some additional new money that we're going to be able to invest in services where we can identify gaps, which is part of what we're currently doing through the Family Hub Implementation Group and through the task groups that sit underneath that, around where we have gaps that we would want to invest in going forward with any new money that is made available to us. Does that answer all your questions?
Just, can I have guarantees that there's not going to be any reductions in services or staff, especially in the Ashington area? Because where the Children's Centre is at the moment, it is definitely, the work that they've done has been fantastic, and I would hate for it to end or the funding to suddenly stop in a few years' time. So can I have guarantees of staffing in that funding will be guaranteed for the Ashington area? Thank you.
Certainly for the future that I'm aware of, there is absolutely no plans. In fact, actually, this is about us building on and delivering more services from those areas and meeting the needs of those communities more as we go forward. So it's a positive move. There is certainly no suggestion that we're reducing anything in the foreseeable future.
Councillor Dale, then Councillor Dunbar.
Thank you very much. Can I just thank you and welcome this report. Anything that moves things forward, which brings and helps people, younger children, young families, everything is obviously very much needed, especially in the areas of deprivation. One of the big things, obviously, with the loss of shore staff a long time ago, there has been a gap, and I just think you've kept that gap moving, but we've got a massive opportunity to really deliver more now. And I just wondered, the actual framework of delivery, and actually when you think families and children, actually includes schools, preschools, all those people, which before were all very much part of an area delivery for whatever town it was, and a lot of certainly where there was deprivation. You know, there was a lot of input by education that everybody knew exactly where the concerns were, how they were going to pick them up. So we didn't see them when they got further up and they'd actually been kindly looked after. So you know, they grew. It's a bit like the Marmot Review, if you look at it, and that's gone back. My concern is that now you've got there is a bigger deprivation coming, and we've got more issues about living standards, and all the rise in the cost of living, etc., which causes more and more strain and stress actually on families in these areas in particular, but actually other areas. But also it actually puts a lot more strain on the services you have to deliver. And I'm very much aware of that. And I just think that we need to bring the schools, I'm not saying you don't, but bring more local people in who have contacts working with the whole of the area to ensure that we encapsulate everybody and catch everybody at the very beginning, because if we don't, I was talking to somebody the other day, and there's all kinds of issues. It's not in Northumberland in particular, but all over. And people were saying, you know, sure start, if it had been there, that would have carried on, we'd have caught these things. And I think that's the main thing now, is to ensure that we can actually look after our children from birth, actually pre. And, you know, the Marmot Review report, and I keep on going on about this, is all the work we did, and it was a really good document, and we went to exactly what was, and we had psychiatrists and we had everybody in, and it was really extensive. And I don't know if Mary, if you were part of that or if you remember it, but it was very, very valuable. And actually, even if we could share that document, and they should all be there now, we share that document with everybody, you can see exactly what the whole picture was and how it was, and then we could look at the 2020 review, which is now, and actually that shows the gaps widening, which actually is a real concern, and obviously a concern to you, Graham, and to Mary, because, you know, it's going to get wider and wider with the more problems and issues that are coming up. So these centres are very valuable, but we need to maybe put more funding in at the present time, think about more funding, and that is something I would ask, because I actually think it's a priority. And I think our young children are a priority to us. And if we don't help them now and help their families now, then it's going to be a real issue further up.
So if we can pick that up, particularly that connectivity with schools, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor. I mean, integrated and partnership working is crucial from birth through to adulthood if we're going to meet the needs of the children, particularly those suffering from deprivation and other challenges for them. So we've done a lot of work, and you've seen also through the SEND developments and progress we're making here. There's a lot of increased and more effective joint working, certainly between social care and education, but it's about the wider partnership. And I think the Family Hubs development gives us the opportunity, the springboard, to take that even further. I think we're in a good place in Northumberland in terms of the offer that we do have already to give us strength to take it further. But I think the engagement with all partner agencies, as Mary's talked about, with the voluntary and community sector, as well as the statutory agencies such as education and schools, I think is part of the overall developments to make sure we do that effectively. And we're looking at a range of how we improve those links and partnerships in a lot of other ways as well. But just taking the point about deprivation as well, and just linking to something that's also happening, the Inequality Summit, which was mentioned yesterday at Cabinet, the work around the place-based developments there. And I think this is part of that overall strategy around place-based development, linking and making sure we're maximising and working with communities is also part of this as well. So we've got key responsibilities around our service provision, but I think as part of this, developing with the communities, as Mary said, and what they already have, and building on those strengths is part of that as well.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Dunbar.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry I didn't come to the last meeting, so I don't. It might have been raised at the last scrutiny. But how many family hubs are we planning to have in Northumberland, and where are the locations?
Okay, so we currently have 12 children's centre buildings, and we are planning on kind of converting all of those into family hubs. But one of the key things around the family hub model is that it's not just about being building based, because we obviously recognise, particularly in the rural areas, that accessibility to buildings is not something that is available for everyone, and not everybody wants to act, the buildings can act as a barrier. So it's also about the, as I mean, Councillor Dale has very much said, it's about working with partners like schools, like other community venues, to make sure that the range of services on offer can be delivered from different places where needs be. I mean, we've always had a history in Northumberland in our rural areas of having things like play buses that go out to rural communities where public transport, doesn't always allow families to come in. There's obviously also individual outreach in terms of people going into family homes, and that already happens, where we have workers who go into family homes to support them around things like, parenting or behaviour management, or, support them with kind of, anything that's impacting on their family. And it's also about the digital officer. So one of the things that we've very much developed in during the pandemic, out of necessity, but actually has proved a positive engagement for some families, and particularly working parents or fathers, is the digital offer, and again very much part of the delivery model both in Northumberland and nationally is about making sure that we have all strands of that in place for families to be able to access, so that we can, and it's not about somebody having to come into a building, it's about creating a kind of a one-stop shop. So it doesn't matter if you're a parent of a child in Northumberland, if you go into somewhere and ask about what services are available, that actually people should be able to point you in the right direction of where you need to go.
Thank you. I mean, I am sort of, well, I think everyone's going to be concerned about the cost of living rises, with fuel poverty, and I think there's going to be a hike in interest rates in, and I think that's probably be going on. So is the county being prepared, ready for families who are going to get into some more difficulties, and how they can support them through this?
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also links, for example, the work that Mary's talked about with our working with the community together, things like the holiday activity funds, a range of processes and supports that we have got in place to support children, families who are struggling along those lines. But if I just reinforce the point really about not just being centre-based, I mean, I think going back to the Sure Starts, one of the criticisms of them was the inability to reach hard-to-reach families, or families who don't engage easily with us if it was all centre-based activity, and the importance and flexibility that we have with the service, including our learning from the digital work and developments that we have put in place over the pandemic, are all part of making sure we reach all the children families who need it, and in particular those who wouldn't necessarily engage very easily with our services.
Yeah, thank you. I think on my ward in Cramlington, we've got a community house that's gone back into Northumberland hands now, which is, an opportunity to have, and it was on an estate where families may benefit from the support, and it's something they could drop in. I hope that we could work together with your department, with the housing department, to sort of make that open, and accept, for people to actually pop in and get the help and support that they need in the future.
Sure that we can pick that up as officers for that unit. But Councillor Ball wants to come back in again.
Yeah, it's not actually about this point. It's about the noise in here today. I might as well be sat in the car park. I'm really struggling to hear members, and I just think it's a bit ridiculous, the amount of noise coming from both this way and this way today. So, to be honest, would it make any difference? Because I can barely hear the member in front of us.
The good news is we're on the last item on the agenda, and the work does go on it. But I think as long as we've had some very good debate this morning. So again, I think apologies about the noise, but hopefully this won't go on for too long. Councillor Dodd.
Can I just say that sometimes some people have got to start to be able to use these microphones better than what they are using, because the microphones are there for a purpose, so we can all hear what everybody says. But some people aren't particularly good at using the microphones. Personally, I don't think I need one, but they're there for people who don't have a strong voice or a loud voice. Now, I don't know if that's a plus or a minus, but I think, you know.
And just say the next meeting will be back upstairs, where it will be a bit quieter. So, but the point is, we've transacted the business this morning, and we're about to transact some more business, because the power for this decision sits with this committee. So, in years to come, when you walk past these centres and you see these lovely little children who've grown up into engineers and work in a British vault and probably working on a construction site like we are currently sitting in, you'll know that you actually did that. So on that basis, can I please just have a show of hands to say that we are in support of this change? Now, that looks pretty much like a lot of people. Is anyone against? Any abstentions? Right, so pretty much we've got full support there. So thank you very much, Mary, for that report. Quickly move on. I will shout. Chris, I'm sure you will too. Moving the work programme, which is item number 7 on your agenda.
Thanks, Chair. I think a lot of what's coming on the work programme in the next couple of months is being covered. Certainly at the next meeting we'll have the Education Strategy Board update and the school... Is that better? Yeah. So we should have the Education Strategy Board update and the School Improvement Strategy at the next meeting. Hopefully that should help answer some of the questions that have been raised today. And the only other thing I wanted to mention is the school transport review that was due to conclude in July. Is going to move to October. The remit of the people that the review is consulting with has been widened, so it's going to take a little bit more time to complete and go through the process before it comes back to us in October. That's it.
Right, thank you very much for that, Chris. I've not been informed of any urgent business, so on that note, thank you so much for your attention this morning. Apologies about the noise, and have a good day. Thank you very much indeed for attending.